Hello, I'm just laying here on my kitchen floor watching my corms dry. So yesterday I went out into the hoop house and I dug up my anemone corms. I think the best way to do this is you wait for all the foliage to die out, plant goes dormant, and then you pull up the corms. I think I probably could have done it more easily in the heat of summer because they do kind of like fizzle out if it gets too hot. But we never really get that hot. In the hoop house, it does kind of, their growth definitely stunted, but they stayed alive until it got cold very quickly and just kind of froze them all. And that's how I pulled them out. The top inch of those flower beds were frozen. So I figured I would do it now, even though the foliage wasn't fully died out. There was even some like new flower blooms coming up. I don't think they would have really gotten anywhere or gone to bloom because it started to freeze. And I didn't want the ground to fully freeze to the point where I couldn't dig them up at all. Because the first inch of the ground was frozen, I kind of just brought it inside in chunks because I didn't want to try and like chip off the frozen dirt and then accidentally break the corms. I did end up breaking some of the corms. I think that's kind of inevitable anytime you're doing something like this. But I got a decent amount back. I'm sure I didn't get everything. I'm sure I missed some because some of the plants did fully die out, and then I think I just couldn't pinpoint where those plants were. So I'm sure there's still some of them in the ground. They're not gonna make it. I think they're hardy to, I mean, they're a pretty hardy plant, but they don't overwinter here for sure. Is it zone 9 or maybe 6 that they're hardy to? Here in Alaska, we're a zone 5B. Where I am actually is a zone 5B. I thought we were 4B for all the time that I've been gardening in Alaska, but things are just getting warmer. They update those like zonings based off of like 10-year history. So in the most recent 10 years, we would be a zone 5B. Anyway, that still actually is not super relevant because we have a really long winter and we have pretty wet winters and cold springs. So spring is sometimes where everything kind of rots and dies off. When everything's melting, it's wet but really cold, so it like melts and then freezes again and then melts and freezes. And yeah, there's a lot of reasons why even things that are supposed to be perennial in zone 5s will not really work here unless you like take extra care and like mulch or put it in like the proper spaces in your garden. Anyway, all that to say, whatever's left in the hoop house that I didn't pull up, that's gonna die. I'm not banking on them coming back. I got a lot of small corms. These anemone corms, they look pretty wonky. They look like just weirdly shaped like clumps of dirt or rocks. In fact, while I was pulling them out, I just like brought in as much as I could. I brought in, it turns out, like a bunch of just frozen pieces of dirt. It was just really hard to tell because corms are so like, you know, they're not as uniformly shaped as a bulb. So you don't know where these like arms and legs of the corms are gonna be, or even what is a corm or what's just like a weirdly shaped clump of dirt or rock or something like that. Being in the hoop house, by the way, at this time of year is actually really nice. There's something about like the smell of, I don't know, like the frost and then the cold, like frozen, but dying off plants, that plant matter. I don't know, it's a really distinct smell, and being in the hoop house and smelling that, it just kind of, I guess, gives me a sense of peace. It's getting close to the time of year where 2 years ago my brother passed away, and I remember I spent a lot of time in the hoop house just by myself, I don't know, trying to like pull it together and trying to find some peace of mind. And yeah, I think I guess that's the feeling that I get now when I go in there at this time of year. Sort of like a getaway. It almost feels like I'm kind of just in a different world, this world that I made for myself to be okay in, if that makes any sense. I don't know, maybe other people have those same kind of feelings, you know, when you step into your garden, you get a sense of peace. And that's honestly really why I like do all of this, why I've thrown myself into it so much. But here, I want to show you some of these corms. So yeah, some of them pretty small, some of them are pretty big, and I really want to divide them. I think it would have been much easier if those plants had naturally like died back, had spent some time actually like going into dormancy and dying back. You'll know when you can divide an anemone tuber because it just kind of pulls apart. There'll be like sections of it that you kind of like can twist and it will come apart. I don't feel any now, and honestly I don't want to. I'm just gonna cut off some more of this green stuff, some more of the shoots that are still coming out, again because like anemones love the cold weather. When I kept them in the ground after like the heat of the summer, when it got cooler again, they started growing a lot more. In California, I know, did I call this ranunculus? I meant anemone. I don't know if I called this ranunculus. My friend just sent me some information on growing ranunculus in California, which is where I used to live, which is where I still have family. So I always consider going back there and like growing there. And about now is the time that you put in plants like this, corms like this, anemone and ranunculus, because they love the cold weather, and it's a reliable flower crop to grow in places where it doesn't really get too cold. Yeah, you can see on this just how many like growth points there are, and essentially if you can split this in a way, if it can split really in a way that you have still a lot of space for roots to grow. I mean, they really can grow out of anywhere on the corm, but that you at least have one growth point. Then they're good to divide. I think I might try and do this like a dahlia tuber. Even if these like don't come apart on their own, which is really the most reliable way you should be dividing your anemone corms, I might see if I can like cut them up like I would a dahlia tuber. And I'll do that in the spring. I don't want to do it right now because they're gonna have to be in storage, and the smaller I make these corms, the more likely they are to just completely dry out and like not be viable to plant next year. Oh no. I just got my knees dirty. I mean, the whole point of like using this, it's like a little, I don't know, kind of very shallow bag, just like a cover for the ground so that I can do all of my potting up in here. I think my mom gave this to me as a gift last year, and I really need to use it more because my ground, the floor of the kitchen is always like full of potting mix, and which Brendan does not appreciate. And I don't think my dog does either. When you have a lot of potting mix inside, especially when it's like scattered, it gets in the air and that's not good. And dogs have like a very sensitive nose, and yeah, things in the air can really irritate them. My dog is fine, but all this to say, I just need to be a little bit more mindful inside the house. So I think these are dry enough. I can still see some like wet spots. I can still feel it a little bit damp, but I can go ahead and put it into vermiculite, which I'll do now in a second. Something I also meant to do yesterday, but actually just forgot, is dig up some of my dahlia tubers. So I hope it's not too late to do that. They're a lot more sensitive to cold temperatures and to frost than anemone corms. So even though they're underground, hopefully they're enough underground that that first like top inch of frozen ground like didn't affect them, that the frost hasn't affected them. It's a little bit warmer today and tomorrow, so this might be a good time to dig them up. The ground isn't super like frozen. Maybe it melts a little bit or like has a little more give. At the very least, in the next couple of days, hopefully it doesn't freeze any further and I can get them all pulled out. Some of my dahlias in containers, I don't know how good they are. Maybe I'll be able to see if they're rotten or not, or maybe I'll just have to wait until the spring, which is difficult because then I have to, you know, find space to store them all winter and then find space to start sprouting them and see which ones do well or not. This year I got very behind on everything. Hopefully next year I'll just be more organized and get things done sooner at appropriate times. It's not off to a great start because I'm already behind on getting them up, but I'll see what I can do. This is a box of vermiculite that I had that I stored things in last winter. Maybe dahlia tubers or maybe just like ranunculus and anemone corms. I think I used a bunch of vermiculite from this too, so I'll have to find some more. I'm sure I have some. And so I'm just kind of like laying and pressing these corms into this like thin layer of vermiculite. I think I've got like 1.5 or 2 inches of vermiculite in there. And I'm laying them all in like a single layer. Trying not to get them to touch. The more they touch, the more likely they are to like, you know, keep moisture between them and to, you know, have fungal issues or rot. Here's how it all looks. Just looks like a bunch of little turds, honestly. And yeah, something that looks like maybe like a little bit of a litter box. But I'm gonna find another layer of, or I'm gonna find some more vermiculite and sort of lay that on top. And then I'm gonna put this away, keep it in my garage. That seemed to work out well. It doesn't fully freeze in the winter. We have it slightly heated, but it's not as hot as it gets inside. So it like just keeps longer. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this up, get it done. I'll do it off camera because I need to find, I know I have vermiculite, but I need to find it somewhere. It might be outside. And I will probably go out and dig up those dahlias today, but I think I'm gonna wrap up this video, just make a quick little video on how to store your anemone corms. Hopefully it helps. Anemones are such a gorgeous flower and the corms are pretty expensive, so if you can save them, you definitely should. In my opinion, especially living in such a cold climate and wanting to grow flowers here, anemones are very precious and they're very valuable. So even though I'll probably be buying more corms for next year, I'll definitely want to just like keep growing my collection, if you know what I mean. Hopefully I'll get these bigger corms divided and have a little bit more. Maybe make up for all the corms that I lost out there. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.